Riki has found himself back in the meta slowly but surely as pro players begin to experiment with a few of his new builds. This build that we're showing you here is relatively straightforward. You're focusing on Blink Strike and Tricks of the Trade, but you are taking a relatively early value point in Smokescreen as soon as you get Cloak and Dagger to allow you to better take advantage of your ability to get up on someone, surprise them, and kill them. Your starting items are relatively simple. You're taking as much stats as you can, building into a Orb of Corrosion because it simply allows you to do additional damage while slowing them and keeping people within Smokescreen. You generally try to lane as long as you can until you can finish your Diffusal Blade, because without Diffusal Blade, Riki's kind of vulnerable. It's his major item timing, and from there, Manta so that you can dispel the dust, and Basher so you can keep guys within Smokescreen and also utilize Tricks of the Trade more effectively. Optional items include your classic Magic Wand, which is very popular right now, into items that can add to your survivability, whether they be BKB or Eye of Skadi. At the end of the day, Riki's in a pretty good spot right now and finding himself back in the meta. One of the most traditional mids, especially for relatively new players at low MMRs, is Huskar. And what's interesting is that Huskar has been long abandoned by the pro scene, but you're now seeing some experimentation with a new build. The build is relatively complex, so let me just kind of break it down here. Starting at the abilities, you're actually ignoring your talents and your second point in life break for some time. The reason for this is because the value you get into additional points of inner fire outweigh the benefits of the actual talents. So that's why it's more beneficial to take the additional points over the talents. And life break doesn't actually give you that much as you kind of level it up. The one value point is enough. From there, what you want to do is you want to build as much just kind of tank ability as you can, rushing into an armlet early on so that you can basically utilize life break and armlet to basically melt down enemies. You do want to get your treads BKB so that you can't get bursted down. You're often buying infused raindrops so that when you life break, you don't become very vulnerable to magical burst damage. But the unique part of this build is a lot of pros are looking to actually go Aghanim Scepter, which increases the range of life break and also causes a taunt similar to a Legion Commander. And then once you finish the Aghanim Scepter, going Blade Mail. This makes a unique kind of synergy where you life break someone, they're forced to attack you, and then you can basically burst them down. It allows Huskar to trade more effectively in the late game, especially when coupled with a Satanic. What can I say? Huskar back in the meta. I'm excited to see it. Believe it or not, Position 3 Beastmaster is finding itself back in the meta as it commands a 56% win rate at high MMRs, and pros are beginning to experiment with the push capabilities of a Beastmaster-based lineup. The skill build is relatively straightforward. You're focusing in on Call of the Wild and Inner Beast, when obviously taking Primal Roar at 6. The idea here is to create as much map pressure as you can, take down the enemy tier 1 relatively early, usually with before 10 minutes, and then taking Wild Axes later. You're also going to be rushing towards a Helm of the Dominator while taking a value Ring of Basilius in order to maintain your presence in lane, utilizing the boars more effectively as they are relatively mana intensive. You're sticking with brown boots as you move towards a Helm of the Overlord, and the value of Basilius is it helps you get to your Vladimir's Offering faster, which helps you complete the Helm of the Overlord a little quicker. You're then going into your Drums of Endurance so you can kind of burst down towers and help amplify the damage capabilities of your allies and your controlled minions, while also taking the Aghanim Shard. Pros are taking the Aghanim Shard very often so they can utilize the little bird, the call of the Wild Hawk, in order to stun enemies and do additional damage, and finishing off with an Assault Cuirass in order to amplify your the synergy with Inner Beast and to attack faster and take objectives faster. Optional items, very popular, is the Blink Daggers. You can blink on top of someone. Primal Roar, also very popular right now. If you kind of want to try something a little different, instead of going into the usual kind of build afterwards, going Assault Cuirass with drums, you can actually take the Wild Axes damage at level 15, go Arcane Boots into Aghanim Scepter and Aether Lens, and what it'll allow you to do, it'll allow you to use your Wild Axes to great effectiveness, especially if you have a frontliner, a carry that traditionally likes to be in the front lines, like a Wraith King or even a Juggernaut that gets really farmed. You can move towards a Wild Axes based build in order to maximize the amount of damage you can do. Now here's a hero that we've not spoken about in some time. Spirit Breaker is seeing some experimentation in position 3, but ultimately falls usually in the position 4 as a soft support. Now in this particular build, it all revolves around the ability for him to trade effectively in lane. This build is mostly used when you're with a very strong laning partner that can utilize the greater bashes with good effect when coupled with an Orb of Venom to secure more kills in the actual laning stage. This particular build revolves around being a lane bully and ultimately progressing into a magic wand, phase boots, which obviously synergizes with Charge of Darkness. If you gotta cast it before, then you charge. But then into the Aghanim Scepter, which also benefits Charge of Darkness as well, which greatly increases your mobility, into a Black King bar because you tend to be right in the middle of the fight. Optionally, right, he has a lot of like utility with his build. Going to the Aghanim Scepter really does provide you with the opportunity. Aghanim Shard, gives you the opportunity to utilize Nether Strike, especially against heroes that can, really be made vulnerable because of its break effect. And also Spirit Vessel, a great item on Spirit Breaker because he's always in the mix of the fight. Solar Crest, a great item as well if you want to focus down an individual target. Heaven's Halberd adds to his survivability and allows him to disarm, an enemy carry. And if you really want to get crazy, Silver's Edge has excellent synergy with what he can do with the amount of damage that he can put out. But ultimately, he's a great hero that's being utilized in a very utilitarian form, and one that I'm sure you will find success with. Alright, so I'm really excited to talk to you about Position 5 Hard Support Dazzle. And the reason for that is because there's a new build that's emerging that's actually very interesting. The build up is actually relatively normal. You are going Poison Touch into your value point of Shadow Wave and Shallow Grave, but that's not what makes this interesting. What makes this interesting is the fact that the new build revolves around getting the Aghanim Scepter, a Holy Locket, and Aether Lens. You can actually skip the Holy Locket if you wish, but the added healing is beneficial. And the idea behind this is really amplifying your ability to utilize Shadow Wave. With your Aghanim Scepter, your Shadow Wave will do additional healing, additional damage to enemies. It'll also dispel your allies, which can be extremely valuable against specific lineups. So a lot of pros are actually going towards the Aghanim Scepter to create the situation where Dazzle becomes this like heal bot in the back line that like other people can't really contend with. When they do that build, especially the pros, they tend to skip the Mechanism and Guardian Greaves because there just isn't enough money to go around. But for relatively new players and players at low MR and pubs, you're probably able to afford pretty much everything because games tend to go longer. So you can go into Arcane Boots, then Ags into Holy Locket or Aether Lens, or you can do the traditional Arcane Boots into Mechanism, Guardian Greaves, Shard, which is still amazing, and then even finish this later because usually there's enough money to go around. But regardless of that, Dazzle's back as a top tier Position 5. Thank you so much for watching, and a very special thank you to all of our wonderful subscribers. We will see you in the next Dota 2 video.